So after his corn addiction or the infidelity is exposed, nope, let's stop blaming ourselves for the flaws of men. We try our best to birth and raise them well. What they turn into is not our fault. So I made a video recently explaining how this addiction starts and how we stop it. And I think a lot of women interpret that video that I am trying to give men an excuse and an out on the accountability of their actions. In no way, shape, or form do I do that. I am not placing the accountability on women. In fact, in that diagram, I show that it's usually from the mom or the dad, and that spills into their own generational trauma. Addictions start this way, whether it's corn or sex addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs. A lot of addictions stem from people, not just men. This is also applies to women being in this situation with corn and sex addiction. A lot of the addictions that we have today stem from emotional root trauma and pain. And if we don't understand that, we can't go back and heal that.
So in a perfect world, we would all have no pain. There would be no pain in the beginning, there'd be no pain at the end, and then we'd all be responsible for our actions. What we discover when we dive deep into these things, that a lot of addictive behaviors stem from wanting to separate from pain, get away from it, move forward, and actually numb it. With that, the behaviors of accountability, where it's like, these are the actions I've taken, need to couple with the actions of how have I been hurt, right? A parent-child perspective, the child who's trying to recover would go back and say, hey, I was really hurt in my childhood. Yes, my parents probably did their best, but I was still really hurt. And in that perfect world, there would be no hurt. In a perfect world, you would do your best and your child would have no pain. But that's not the case. There's been usually a lot of pain caused from the rearings. And as parents, we have to be willing that when our children come to us and say, hey, I've been really hurt and it's actually caused a lot of problems in my life because I've been trying to cope with it the wrong way, that we can take accountability for that. And as the person who is doing the wrong behaviors that have led to a lot of pain, we need to then take accountability for that ourselves. That's where really just honesty and openness is key to moving through that behavior pattern to then create new patterns of behavior.
And that was a lot of work for both of us. We didn't just do that for ourselves in the relationship. We also did that for our children because we realized we weren't giving our children the space to come and talk to us and be open emotionally with their hard emotions, with their difficult emotions. We had come into the marriage with a lot of bad coping mechanisms and ways of responding to things. I was not a safe place for David's emotions, not taking accountability for his actions. But I learned in this process to be a safe place for the days he was struggling or the days that he had bad days. My therapy was just as important as his therapy if I wanted to stay and choose to work on this. So our message here is not excuses for bad behavior, for tolerating bad behavior. We teach people to set boundaries with their partners and say, this behavior is bad and unacceptable, and I will not tolerate it. If this area is crossed, we have to separate it until there can be a change in behavior. If that's not something you're interested in, then this relationship's not compatible. And that men and women in these situations that are using anything outside the relationship that's damaging to their partner and hurting their partner, they need therapy to work on those issues. There were bad coping mechanisms that they brought into the marriage to handle conflict, stress, big decisions, a lot of different things. And those are traits that we did learn how to do as children.
In order to go back, you do have to go back to who your parents were and address the situations that were painful at the time. So it should not be blanketed as I'm only this way because of my mom. It should be because I've made decisions to try to avoid the pain that was caused as a child. The people that remain stuck are the ones that don't want to heal, they just want to blame. And ultimately blame can't help heal.
I do not hold my parents responsible. I have a lot of empathy and grace for my parents that they were trying to do the best that they could with the cards they had been dealt with and so forth their parents had been dealt with. You know, every parent I think wants to give their children better than what they had. We are not going to be perfect parents at all. I know that. Like, we're going to have our children eventually come back and tell us things that wounded them and hurt them, and we will have to process that with our kids. Our goal Our goal is to be a safe place for each other's hearts. We've learned how to do that, and we want to pass that on to our children and letting them have a safe place to come and communicate with us so that they can do that with their future partner and their future children.
And heal if we've missed something.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So